Okay, I'd like to call the Joint Special School Building Committee to order. We're at Nashua High School North Lecture Hall. It's Thursday, April 18th, 2024. It's 7 p.m. We'll start the meeting. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Yes. Okay, I apologize. I did not get to stop today. Alderman Dowd?
Present.
Alderman Wilshire? Here. Alderwoman Timmons? Here. Alderman Sullivan?
Here.
Alderman Lopez?
Here.
Ms. Raymond?
Here.
Ms. Bishop is here. Ms. Gilio?
Here.
Ms. Daniels-Williams?
Here.
Ms. Prin?
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Good, excellent. Great. If the clerk would now lead us in the prayer,
Yep.
and would Alderman Lopez lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Educational affairs of our beloved city. Fill us, O God, with a spirit of unity and understanding, which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of all of our fellow citizens. So help us God. Amen.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Without objection, I'll waive the reading of the minutes of the March 28th, 2024 meeting and place them on file. Remarks by Chairman. We will have an opportunity after the invoices are approved tonight to discuss any questions relative to the project budgets. So that'll be later. Remarks by school administration. Anything, Dr. Andre?
So this past week, Monday, Tuesday, and tonight, we had tours of Elm Street middle school teachers have visited McCarthy Middle School and just overjoyed, overwhelmed, just the comments that I received back was just their pleasure in the school. So I can't thank the team enough and the JSSBC enough. You know, it's not often that people are overly optimistic about moves and the inconvenient, but I heard nothing but praise and really joy and excitement to open up the new school. So looking forward to your tour when when it's scheduled. But again, I think you'll be amazed and overwhelmed on just what the new learning space is going to look like. So excellent.
I hope there put a lot of effort into that school. Harvey did a great job. Herman did a great job. The name of the school is now up over the front door, and that's very nice. It's coming along. Okay. And Sean, did you have anything?
Save everything for later. Thank you.
Okay. We'll go into items for discussion and approval of invoices. So the first is you all received a letter from Harriman in the agenda. Questions relative to what they provided? Because Jamie's on vacation and since we can't Zoom in. Okay. All right. Then we'll go right to Harvey Construction. Who's going to start? Brendan.
Hello, everyone. Brendan Orell, Harvey Construction. So I'm going to take Ken's spot tonight. Ken took the night off, so I will walk us through a quick update on the state of Brian S. McCarthy, and then I'll jump into Birch Hill, Maine Dunstable, give us a quick update there. And then also an update on where we stand with Pennachuck dehumidification and Dr. Crisp. So jumping into the Brian S. McCarthy Middle School. So the big push right now is with all the exterior site work and landscaping items. Over the past week, they started placing a lot of the granite benches at the exterior of the school, finishing up a few of the entryways and the paving stones and everything, starting to tie in a lot of the perimeter walkways, the granite curbing we had mentioned at the previous meeting. A significant length of that was installed. So a lot of work at the exterior right now as we start to bring the whole site together. As for really the interior of the building, so the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing final inspections have actually been completed over the previous few weeks. We do still have a few items and one scheduled for tomorrow as well. So those will lag until toward the end of the week. We also have the final life safety inspections that had taken place throughout the course of last week and this week as well. So really starting to tie things up there, get all the final approvals that we need to get the building up and running and turn over to you folks. We're also working really hard. So the elevator inspection comes tomorrow. And we'll be pushing for the temporary certificate of occupancy at the end of this month. So that's really the big milestone overall to allow everybody to move in, start to populate the spaces, and really finish off the school. Some other items we're working on, so commissioning is something that sort of goes through after finishing up the building, fine tuning everything, getting it all in check and making sure that everything's working properly for Mr. Smith and also Gary Connors and all the folks that maintain these buildings for years to come. We also have the owner equipment and furniture scheduling coming up. So the move-in date, May 6th. And there was a pre-mobilization site visit conducted with Hertz Furniture previously on April 9th. So they were able to view the building, kind of put a game plan together as to how they're going to approach the furniture moves, review some items with us, such as floor protection, et cetera, to make sure the building is protected and safe as we start to move those items into the school. Additionally, we're working on punch list with Harriman in Area A, so that's sort of their final walkthrough, identify any open items or anything that we really need to address. So it's all sort of fine tuning at this point and a lot of work at the exterior to get the rest of the building together. So that's pretty much where we stand with McCarthy. A lot of exciting updates. As Alderman Dowd had said, the exterior perimeter is really coming together. All the metal panels are mounted on it. The letters at the very front of the school are now mounted, so you can see the name directly on the building. It really looks incredible.
One thing, I watched the progression of the front stairway, front walk. We learned a lot when we did this school. One was if you're going to heat the sidewalk, you do it all the way to the street, which we did at McCarthy, and the pipes are laid under the stone pavers. There'll be bollards going in, of course, where they belong in the front of the school. And we also, Harvey put a solid base so that the pavers won't go anywhere, and also the heat from the fluid won't go into the ground. It'll go up to melted snow. That's at both entrances, the school bus entrance and the main entrance. So that's coming along really well. I have a bunch of other things I'm going to mention because I had this meeting today, Sean and I, with DPW, but we'll cover that at the end. Any other questions on McCarthy for Harvey?
Okay, we'll move on into Birch Hill and Maine Dunstable. Matt, you want to read through those first couple of items there? Really yours.
Yeah. So Matt Smith with Energy Efficient Investments. We've made some good strides over at both schools, getting all the electrical in the walls and plumbing in the walls and the inspections that go with it to allow for Harvey's group to be able to close up the walls. We are currently working on all the ceiling rough in so that we can get out of their way so they can start getting ceilings up eventually. But we've made some good strides in the ceiling. This week coming up with the vacation should be pretty exciting for us. We have some equipment being rigged in, and then we have the BDA testing, which is a internal life safety test that gets done to make sure that heaven forbid, the fire department or anybody has to be in there, that the signal can work within the building. So that's a big test coming up this coming week.
So just real quick, if the BDA, if the air communication works, we won't have to put the BDA system in and there'll be a savings.
That's correct.
If it doesn't work, we have to put the BDA in and there won't be a savings.
Right, which we presented in the additional costs. So that's a big one that we've all been kind of waiting for to see how it turns out and what needs to be done after it gets tested out. So, other than that, just like I said, heading in with the rough so we can get out of their way and let them start getting to their finishes. But it's moving along quite nice.
Thanks, Matt. So I'll run you through Harvey's items over at Maine Dunstable and Birch Hill. So as Matt mentioned, a really big week coming up here over April break. So the asbestos abatement that we typically do, we always do that outside of occupied school time, whether it's on weekends or on breaks. So we will be doing a series of abatements in various areas throughout the school that'll take place over April break. So we do a lot of work to schedule those items ahead of time, make sure we can line them up for those breaks and sequence them into our schedule accordingly. As Matt mentioned, so he's really been, the cog in the wheel the last couple of months here. He gets in, gets all of his stuff up and running. We're really just putting up the walls and all the infrastructure so he can put his electrical, mechanical, and plumbing around us. As the weeks progress, we have started to put in drywall, put in all of our drywall tops, start to finish the walls, insulation, door frames, masonry, et cetera, et cetera. One of the big pushes over the last month was finishing up the remaining storefronts. We did work with Matt Smith and his team just to leave one of those open for some equipment that comes out in the next phase. So really a lot of good teamwork between the two of us. Some other things to mention would just be some of the items that are coming up. So at the last meeting, we did present a PCO for the roof replacements. We had a meeting with Gary Connors and our subcontractors earlier this week to try and incorporate that into the schedule. And right now, we're pushing for a summer start to try and get us on pace to do the majority of the roof over the course of this summer. One of the big pieces in that is at Maine Dunstable, I had mentioned there's some asbestos abatement that has to be performed on the roof. And we will get into that immediately when the students are released, which is 6/14 following our snow day a couple weeks back. So a lot of work down at Maine Dunstable and Birch Hill. Anything to add?
Before we go too far, I didn't ask if there were any additional questions on McCarthy. McCarthy or Birchhill, Maine Dunstable, any questions? Yes, Alderman Sullivan?
What is the projected completion date of Birch Hill and Maine Dunstable?
The projected completion date right now I have is September 16th of 2025.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the other thing, we had a discussion today when we were talking about the roof. Is the chimney on both schools?
There is a chimney on both schools.
So there's a chimney that goes through the roof. We were talking about the roof today. We're going to cap the chimney because it would be very expensive to tear the chimneys down. Not as expensive to just cap them and leave them in place. So, a savings. Not having to spend that money to tear the chimneys down. They're not needed anymore. We heard the same thing at the meeting today. Or Santa, I said you have to be awfully skinny to get in that chimney, but anyway.
It's a magic.
Okay, yes.
What
Ms.
is
Freeman.
what is the chimney purpose at this time? Is it just a
It
remnant
used
from
to
an
be to
old
vent
boiler?
gases, but, well, I'll let the professional speak to it.
So the existing boilers that are in that particular room, it used to exhaust through there. Now with the upgraded boilers going in there, it's a different style. It's a condensing style boiler, and we actually have to rerun new flues. So it's no longer needed.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, Brendan?
Pennachuck Middle School dehumidification. So the last few meetings, it's been very much the same thing. submittals and RFIs with Harriman, and really just, looking to mobilize and eyeballing that April 22nd date for the April break release of students when we can get into the South Edition. So now, over the previous couple of weeks here, I actually held a on-site kickoff with Gabriel Falzerano. Went through various logistical items with him, safety measures, closing of doors, anything like that to let him know how we're going to impact the school in the coming months. That went very well. We had a follow up with Chris Lassard, the security director, to assure that all of his needs were met as well. So that went very well. Next, we met with the fire department, brought them on site, bring them in tune on every project, let them know what we're doing, review all of our procedures with them. So we brought Mike Duvarney down, the new fire marshal, and that went very well as well. We did have a early on-site mobilization. So 2 weeks ahead of the April break, we have a lot of piping that goes in the upper attics. So I had reached out to Mr. Falzerano to see if he would have any issues with us mobilizing early just to get a few guys into those attic spaces. Allows us to get ahead of schedule and not be, so spread out over the course of the summer. So we can focus in on the various wings and ensure that we're ready to get out of the school in September. So that went very well. They've actually roughed the piping down both attic lengths. And next week, when the students release, we will be brazing that piping, which is the process to connect everything together. And once that takes place, we'll start doing pressure tests to ensure that that piping is sound. And then we move on and continue on with those installations. So that was very beneficial and greatly appreciated of Mr. Falzerano. He's been excellent.
Just for the people here that might not know and the general public, that's the principal at Pennachuck.
That is correct. The principal of Pennachuck, Gabe. Yep. He's like a friend to me now. He's great. He's really great. We did have a formal construction kickoff meeting earlier this week on the 16th. Brought all the subcontractors down. Gabe, once again, he gave me a conference room in the school, let us use that space, go over everything with our subcontractors, and make sure that they know the standards I want to set at the start of the job. Keep the school clean, and treat it as your home is really what I expressed to them. So now next week on the 22nd, we'll have our full on-site mobilization and really get going. So I have some pictures to show for next month, hopefully.
Any questions on Pennachuck dehumidification? Okay.
And then Dr. Crisp Elementary School. So working very hard with the H.L. Turner Group. So they're the architect that did the design for the school. So really the process with us now is after presenting the recommendations of the previous meeting and issuing subcontracts to our subcontractors, we now start engaging them, getting submittals and RFIs moving with H.L. Turner. So a lot of discussion with Gary Connors, Sean Smith and his team reviewing those items, and a lot of discussion with H.L. Turner to make sure we're checking all the boxes and progressing things, getting ready for the summer schedule. We did have a initial sort of review with the building department, brought down our drawings and everything to Mark Collins, and he actually issued the building permit earlier this week. So that's really the first step in us getting all of our permitting and approvals ready to go. And now Sean Smith, Alderman Dowd, and I are working through the remaining approvals, also with the help of H.L. Turner. So really just a lot of mobilization at this point. And then we are gearing up to get on site early in the summer and get started as soon as we possibly can. So a lot of work this past month on that project.
Any questions on that? I was going to wait till later, but after having discussions with Mr. Griffin, the treasurer and CFO of the city, and the team, Harvey and Sean, we'd like to transfer the money that's left over from Franklin Street, because that bond's already been sold. The money has to be transferred by legislation. And we'd like to transfer it to the security vestibule project, so that when we finally do new Searles, the cost will be less the bond at that point. So I'd like somebody to make the motion that asked me to put the legislation in to transfer the money from Franklin Street to the vestibule project. Okay, Alderman Sullivan made the motion. Is there any discussion? She beat you, Miss Raymond.
Oh, thank you. I don't know off the top of my head how much is left from the Franklin Street project.
Good, Sean, you get the exact number, 200.
Not with me, but it's a little over 240,000.
40,000. Okay.
Bishop,
That was my question.
yes, Mr. Sullivan.
So if you
Alderman
could,
Sullivan.
thank you. If you could just rewind what you said a little bit. So we're going to take 200,000 and we're going to take that 200,000, we're going to apply it to Dr. Crisp Security Vestibule.
It was actually 3 schools in the original bond.
Okay.
And it's Dr. Chris, New Searles, and at some point, if anything gets decided downstream about Mount Pleasant. But right now, we have Turner's given us a new design on New Searles, which is less than the 2.7 million for the adding on to the school, which was sort of an overkill. So we haven't got that priced out yet, but it's probably going to need a little more money, so the bond will be less by 240,000.
The Dr. Crisp School was 1.3?
Yes,
Okay.
out of 2 million.
And the bond was 2 million? Okay, all right.
Lopez.
Through the chair to Superintendent Andre.
Yeah.
Through the chair to Superintendent Andre, or whoever he thinks should answer this. Since we're taking the remaining money out of the Franklin Street School Building Project, are you feeling like that's fully complete, or is there anything else you think needs to be done?
Pass it to Sean. I'm confident we're in a good place, but I don't think Sean and the team would make that recommendation if we weren't at a good place at Franklin Street.
We are done.
Hope so, because we've signed all the completion certificates.
Nothing else you want to do on the playground?
Well,
That would come out of the school district.
that's where I think the ongoing stuff. I think it's now our responsibility to make sure that we keep up with the maintenance moving forward.
Right? Any other questions? So the motion is to allow me to put in legislation to transfer the money left over from Franklin Street to the security vestibule project. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Oh, yes, Ms. Raymond?
I apologize. I still have questions about that bond. And the last page of our packet tonight has the vestibule project numbers, and it shows the budget. The bond is 2 million, right?
I know exactly what question you're going to ask, and it's because if you look at the contingency line for the district,
Okay.
it's rather large.
Okay.
That's because it's the money that's not budgeted for Dr. Crisp.
Thank you.
We did the guaranteed maximum price at the last meeting. That's the price that's reflected up above for Harvey and all the different budgets.
Thank you.
Brendan?
Okay, that's all I have for construction updates. I do have some bookkeeping items to move through if you'd like to get into those, Rick.
Talking about what I have here in my hand.
Yes, yes. I have a couple
Yes, go ahead.
PCOs. Okay. So I do have 2 PCOs to present tonight. One of them is for Birch Hill and the other one is for Maine Dunstable. So I'll just run through the Birch Hill items first to keep Rick on pace, and then I'll move right into Maine Dunstable. And I also have the PCCOs for the roof replacements and the storefront replacements that were presented last month. So that is just the formal approval of that item so that we can move forward with it.
So just for some new people,
Yeah.
again, PCOs we're authorizing additional spending on the project. We don't have to have additional money. The bond, this is something that was covered by the bond. So, and then the PCCOs are actually what changes the contract officially. So the PCCOs is just the paperwork Crossing the Ts, dotting the Is.
Correct.
Good.
Okay. So first item is for Birch Hill Elementary. This is PCO number 7. So this is for the gymnasium improvements. This includes the new basketball hoops and wall pads, all of the demolition of the existing basketball hoops, existing wall pads, the existing steel base around the floor, and then the dumpsters and lifts required to facilitate that work. Also includes the structural reinforcement required to support the new basketball hoops per Harriman's design. The gymnasium ceiling acoustic treatments that get mounted to the deck. The painting that is required on those panels. And then it also includes a full gym floor refinish, which includes basic line work, a logo in the center, et cetera, just like we've done at all of the previous schools. The total price for this is $154,070.29 if approved. And that did come in, both of these PCOs came in approximately $20,000 at one school and $22,000 at the other school, below the values that we had budgeted in the added bond. And that was simply because of competitive pricing amongst the gymnasium equipment suppliers, as well as competitive pricing amongst the floor refinishing subcontractors.
I told him to say that because I thought the Alderman would be interested in the fact that it's
Yes,
not much less.
you did tell me to say that.
I'll now need a,
What a coach. You're a good coach.
I know. So I need a motion to approve PCO number 7 for the Birch Hill Elementary School for the work, on gymnasium improvements in the amount of $154,070.29 and not to exceed. So moved by Alderman Wiltshire. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item for Birch Hill Elementary, as Rick had indicated, is really just a bookkeeping item. So this is comprised of the 2 PCOs that were approved at the last meeting. So this is PCCO number 2, Birch Hill Elementary School, miscellaneous approved PCOs. Total value is $891,244.26.
Okay, so I'll need a motion to approve PCCO number 2 for Birch Hill Elementary School, which covers the items that were approved previously in the amount of $891,244.26. So moved by, I was gonna say Gloria Timmons, Alderman Timmons. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Okay, moving on to Main Dunstable Elementary. So the next item I have is PCO number 7 for the gymnasium improvements at Main Dunstable. This includes all of the items I described previously. It is $155,490.73. So this is the one that was approximately $20,000, and the panels are about $1,500 more from the subcontractor on this job because we have different subcontractors on the 2 jobs. So that is the justification for the price difference. So if approved, $155,490.73.
All right, so I'll need a motion to approve PCO number 7 for the Main Dunstable Elementary School for gymnasium improvements, an amount not to exceed $155,490.73.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Gilio. Any discussion?
I'm floored.
Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. The last item I have for Main Dunstable is another bookkeeping item. This is comprised of the 2 PCOs that were approved at the previous meeting. So this is PCCO number 2. Total value is $921,137.19.
So I'll need a motion to approve PCCO number 2 at Main Dunstable Elementary School in the amount of $921,137.19, not to exceed.
So moved.
Who said that? Brendan? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. So I do have the remaining recommendation packages for Dr. Crisp Elementary. So I was able to wrap them up in 2 meetings. So this will, if approved on these items, will release us to issue subcontracts to these subcontractors to finalize the remaining recommendation scopes for the Dr. Crisp Elementary security upgrades this summer. So the first item I have on this list is Division 3A. So this is the concrete flat work. I am recommending CCS Concrete LLC of Tewksbury, Mass. This includes all the forming, pouring, and finishing of both the concrete sidewalks as well as the interior concrete slab infills. It also includes the reinforcement for the concrete and any of the sealers and accessories required to complete that work. We did have 3 bidders on the scope, and I am recommending the lowest qualified and most complete scope in the value of $6,900.00, and that is CCS Concrete for the concrete flat work.
So I'll need a motion to approve the concrete flat work scope of work for the Dr. Chris Elementary School in the amount of $6,900, not to exceed, the CCS Concrete LLC of Tewksbury, Mass. So move. I'll get Mrs. Raymond. All right. Any questions?
Question.
Yes.
In the bids, you didn't include a quote expiration date on there. I saw that there's nothing defined on that. Well, you didn't require it. I didn't look at the quotes specifically. Do they have an expiration date on those quotes, just in case anything happens?
So with this specific scope, that's a very good question. So as Keith Kelly had noted at some of the previous meetings, so we oftentimes do receive quotes, especially for materials that, are sometimes 5 days, 10 days, 30 days. In this case, what we actually do for the concrete flat work is we purchase the material direct and we hire the subcontractor to install it.
Okay.
And that provides us with the most competitive price, allowing us to control costs. And also, if you hire a subcontractor to do the concrete, they'll often waste a lot of material.
Sure.
So it allows us to limit waste as well.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Not a problem.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. The second recommendation I have tonight is for the architectural millwork. So this includes all of the architectural cabinetry, countertops, hardware, installation, wood trim, and accessories. I am recommending Aubin Woodwork Incorporated of Bow, New Hampshire. We did have 4 bidders on this scope of work. It was pretty competitive. And I am recommending Aubin Woodwork at a value of $33,327.00.
So I'll need a motion to approve the architectural work at Dr. Chris to Auburn Woodworking, Inc. of Bow, New Hampshire, an amount not to exceed $33,327. By Alderman Wiltshire. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. The third recommendation I have tonight is for the acoustical ceilings. So this includes the furnished and installation of the acoustical ceiling tiles as well as the grid. And also includes a little bit of patching and repair as we tie in around some of the existing grid that we will try and maintain during demolition and construction. We did have 5 bidders for the scope. It was very competitive. I am recommending the lowest qualified, most complete bidder. Again, that is Boucher Acoustic LLC of Manchester, New Hampshire, at a value of $7,960.00.
I'll need a motion to approve the work for acoustical ceilings at the Dr. Chris Elementary School to Boucher Acoustics LLC of Manchester, New Hampshire, an amount not to exceed $7,960.
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Lopez. Any questions?
Sounds good.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to the next package. This is drywall and framing. So this includes the furnished installation of, that is LGMF is light gauge metal framing, the insulation and the accessories required to complete that work. Also, any in-wall blocking required to hang any of the accessories on the wall, and then the finishing of the drywall and furnish of that itself. We had 4 bidders for this scope. I am recommending the lowest qualified, most complete bidder. That is Shamrock Incorporated of Auburn, New Hampshire, in the amount of $2,155.00.
Have to be good with a name like that.
We're lucky.
So need a motion to approve the drywall and framing work for Dr. Chris Elementary School Security Vestibule Project to Shamrock Inc. of Auburn, New Hampshire, an amount not to exceed $2,155.
So moved.
Julio, any questions? You have to put your microphone on.
Sorry, I'm doing a lot of contractor
Now,
work
Alderman
now.
Timmons.
Thank you. I have a question. I know you keep saying we're going with the lowest bidder. So what is the difference between the lowest and the highest? And sometimes I'm concerned about the lowest. Are we gonna go back and redo this in a few years?
So-
Just because you're taking the lowest bidder?
No. So that is a excellent, excellent question. The second page of the detailed packages that I provide for each individual recommendation is a big spreadsheet that you will look at. And what I do and what our office does is we go in to build the job. We go down through that spreadsheet and identify each individual item that that person needs to have to complete the work. So we are going through and doing a process that we call de-scoping, and that is making sure that that subcontractor has the full scope. I will often go through and even identify questions or things that I need to clarify with the architect, and I will get that price written and firm, because it's a lot easier to take it back if you have it in writing than it is if you're ambiguous about it. So when we are recommending the lowest qualified bidder, that is somebody that we have qualified, they have the work, they have the scope, they are going to do a good job. We are confident in their ability to do the work. And that is why they have the lowest price ultimately, is why we're recommending them.
Follow up?
Follow up, okay, that's all fine and good. What about material? I mean, materials differ from contractor to contractor. So I don't want a cheap drywall, for instance. I'd rather have a decent one that's gonna last. So even though they're gonna do the same work, I would like to know what about the material that they're gonna use?
Another excellent question. So when Mr. Smith and his team, when they engage the architects, Jamie, he does all of the work behind the scenes to write what's called a specification that define every single product that needs to be provided. So when we are going in and we are buying these materials, we have a specification that we have to follow, which qualifies high grade materials. We also go through a process called submittals, where before that contractor can purchase that material, they have to provide all of the information that's included in Jamie's specification to satisfy his requirements. And him and I will review those in depth and ensure that that subcontractor is providing the highest quality materials in accordance with his design documents. We also bring in third-party inspectors to double check those materials, the work that's completed, and make sure that it's completed in accordance with the design.
Thank you.
And a couple things. Yes, we do bring in somebody to make sure that the material is to spec. And Harriman also is involved in that. And also, I don't think it's a law in Nashua, but it certainly is a standard practice. But if we don't select the most qualified lowest bidder, and we select somebody that's higher, we would have to justify that up one side and down the other, and we could be in an issue where somebody will complain.
Correct.
Any other questions? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. The next package I have is flooring and tiling. This includes all of the ceramic tile and accessories, the furnish and installation of that, as well as the resilient floor tile and accessories, carpet tile and accessories, the walk-off mat at the vestibule, the transitions in between the different types of flooring, and then also some additional attic stock to turn over to the school at the end of the project. We received 4 bids on this scope. We are recommending the lowest qualified or most complete bidder, and that is Gorman Thomas Incorporated of Manchester, New Hampshire, at a value of $18,225.00.
I'll need a motion to approve the flooring and tiling for Dr. Chris Elementary School security works to Gordon Thomas of Manchester, New Hampshire, an amount not to exceed $18,225. Oh, Gorman Thomas.
So moved.
So moved by, who said that? Oh, Alderman Lopez. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I'm getting close to the end here, a couple more. The next one is painting. So this includes the furnish and installation of all paintings, coatings, primers, etc. We did receive 4 bids for this scope. I am again recommending the lowest qualified or most complete bidder, and that is at a value of $12,200.00, and that is for Noonan Brothers Painting LLC of Manchester, New Hampshire.
Okay, then I need a motion to approve the painting for Dr. Chris Elementary School Security Vestibule Project to Noonan Brothers Painting LLC of Manchester, New Hampshire, an amount not to exceed $12,200. So moved by Shawana. Okay. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. By the way, they've done a lot of work for us.
Yes. Yep. We had a different painter at Birchill and Dunstable, and Noonan's been good. Next package, specialties. So this includes the toilet accessories, grab bars, mirrors, things like that. Also includes the fire protection specialties, fire extinguishers, visual display boards, the cubicle tracks and curtains in the nurse's office, a bullet-resistant transaction box to allow a lunch to be dropped off and passed through safely, and all of the room identification signage for the 10 or so rooms that we're impacting. There was 3 bidders for this scope, and I am recommending the lowest qualified or most complete bidder. That is New England Partition and Installation LLC of Manchester, New Hampshire, at a value of $15,143.84.
I'll need a motion to approve the specialties work at Dr. Chris Elementary School Security Vestibule Project to New England and Partition and Installation LLC of Manchester, New Hampshire, an amount not to exceed $15,143.84.
So moved.
Peachy, your hand went up first. Ms. Raymond. All right, any questions?
Question, please?
Questions, yes.
Thank you. I was just gonna ask what the bulletproof transaction bullet resistant, not proof, transaction box is?
So it is there's 2 doors on one side, and it has like a connecting bar. So it essentially allows a parent to come in after going through the security procedure, going inside the door. They can put their lunch inside there, and then once that door is closed, the inside door can now be opened, and then the office attendant could take the lunch out, give it to the student without having to grant access to that individual. So it allows for a quick drop off of various items for an elementary school grade.
It's not just lunches, it could be mittens, it could be paperwork.
I mean, we need those to be bullet resistant.
It's because of the security vestibule and the glass that's also in the window is bullet resistant. Sullivan?
Thank you. Same line item, number 6. I noticed it was a 10 to 12 week lead time. How does that impact the project? Is that
So that
outside the
is
window?
that is really goes back to our conversation of the last meeting.
Yeah.
Is that's why we push to get these items in and then get them approved. And I'm working, 7 days a week to get everything moving with HL Turner, because we're always up against those lead times. So what we do in the field is also work closely with our field supervision to identify what areas we can attack. And then as I'm building the schedule, I take all of this into account to make sure that I can get that job done in time. So that's really the big push right now. Is flooring was approved last month. We've already processed all of those submittals over to HL Turner. We'll hopefully have that released, and then should have it by the time we're about mid-July, or
Okay.
mid-June, sorry.
So we're fine.
Correct. So, yep, we build it all into the schedule. I factor all these items in as we build the job.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. So second to last one, fire suppression. So this includes the installation of fire suppression scope of work items, really moving sprinkler heads. It's a pretty limited scope here. It also includes the permitting and fees, design, calculations, and testing in accordance with all the standards that are required per the specification. We did receive 2 bidders on the scope. I am recommending the lowest qualified or most complete bidder, and that is Hampshire Fire Protection Company, LLC of Londonderry, New Hampshire, in the value of $11,100.00.
I'll need a motion to approve the fire suppression work at the Dr. Chris Elementary School Security Vestibule Project to Hampshire Fire Protection Company, LLC of Londonderry, New Hampshire, in amount not to exceed $11,100.
So moved.
Julio, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. And the last package, and this is the final one, is HVAC and plumbing. So this includes the mechanical ductwork, piping, equipment, and accessories. It also includes all the plumbing, piping, equipment, and accessories, mechanical controls, accessories, and then testing, adjusting, balancing, startup, and owner training of those items. We did receive 4 bids for this scope. I am recommending the lowest qualified, most complete bidder, and that is Palmer and Sicard Incorporated of Exeter, New Hampshire, in the value of $167,170.00.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the HVAC and plumbing for Dr. Chris Elementary School Security Vestibule Project to Palmer and Sicard, Inc. of Exeter, New Hampshire, an amount not to exceed $167,170.
So moved.
Brin, any discussion? Being done, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for your red book. Okay. We already covered EEI, so we have proposal for the wireless network. Sean, is that you up?
I'll cover that, yes. So in your package is a memorandum from Greg Rodriguez, IRT Director, to contract out wireless network for McCarthy Middle School. This is a very good example of lowest qualified bidder. There were 2 bidders. The lower of the 2 left a lot of stuff out. Didn't provide the best specified equipment and a variety of other issues. So Mr. Rodriguez is recommending we go with Intra-Systems in the amount of $186,199.
Need a motion to approve the wireless network for the Brian S. McCarthy Middle School and to Intra-Systems, the amount of $186,199.
Make the motion, but I have a question, please.
Okay, so the motion has been made by
Raymond.
Ms. Raymond. I use your first name, I didn't want to do that. Ms. Raymond, and you have a question. I know.
Exactly.
Sorry, I used his first name too.
So I
Too familiar.
noticed, I noticed on the quotes that the lower quote has in parentheses 3-year lease. And I know that there's other things that are missing as well. But I'm curious about the IntraSystems quote. Are we now going to own those products? And do you know what the lifespan is?
We will own, I don't know the lifespan. I can tell you in addition to all that, we're getting E-rates on this. So the price is 60% cheaper than we normally would pay. I think you're familiar with E-rate, so it's gone through that process.
Okay.
That,
Yeah, I mean, I would like to know the answer at some point, but we can move forward.
any other questions? Alderman Lopez.
I'm just curious about the E-rate process, because if it saves 60%, what is that?
That's an IT thing. I don't know too much about it. Okay.
Because my organization uses E-rate. E-rate is on your phone bill, there's a universal service fee on there. And all that money they collect, they use for schools and libraries to help them bring up to date their IT stuff. It covers quite a bit of stuff, but that's what those charges are on your phone bill, your home phone, your landline, your cell phone, those universal service charges. That's what, there's an organization that uses that fund to put it out to schools and libraries.
I feel incredibly much better about paying my phone bill now.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, invoices. Sean?
Okay, we have invoices from Alternative Sales Corporation for $411, for Energy Efficient Inc. for Birchill Main D for $378,768.71. 4 invoices for Harriman for Birchill, Main Dunstable, McCarthy, and Pennachuck Middle Schools, totaling $31,109.77. 3 invoices from Harvey, work at Birchill, Mandy, and McCarthy, totaling $1,823,490.01. You guys waived the 1 cent, so you just.
I'd like to know where that penny is.
Hannah Swanson for work at McCarthy Middle School, $1,270.96. IntraSystems LLC with 2 invoices, work at Brian McCarthy Middle School, totaling $4,966.68. Page Street Leasing, there's a ground storage unit, $105. Stadium Systems, those were the uniform vendors for athletics. 2 invoices totaling $3,558.90. Today's Classroom invoice for McCarthy Middle School, $2,711.57. And the Turf Depot, McCarthy Middle School, as for grounds equipment, $48,760.14. For the middle school project, it totals $1,417,613.47. For Birchill and Dunstable, $539.27. And there was no invoices for the security vessel project. So those totaled $2,295,952.74.
So I'll need a motion to approve the invoices for the middle school project in the amount of $1,417,613.47. The Birchill, Maine Dunstable invoices of $877,539.27. And no charges for the security vestibule at this time for invoices. And the total is $2,295,152.74. Who'd like to make the motion? So moved by. Didn't even get a chance to say Alderman Timmons. Okay, motion's on the floor. Any discussion? Probably one of the lowest numbers we've had in a year. So all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. right. Comments by committee members. I'm going to actually start. Sean and I had a discussion with Lisa Photo and a couple of people from the Department of Public Works, including the traffic engineer and the person responsible for streets. And we came to an agreement, or actually, there was no discussion. They practically volunteered. D'Antonio Drive will be made a public street as soon as I put the legislation in. We're not going to do that until we pave it and put the signs up, like the stop signs and right turn only signs and that kind of stuff. And that's probably, the D'Antonio Drive is probably going to be finished late May, and the legislation will go in right after that. The street's going to be named after Mr. Dan Antonio as per the purchase and sale agreement. And we are putting a plaque up for the family with his name on it. And he was a World War II hero. So, that will be handled that as soon as we open the street. We came to an agreement, DPW is going to plow and treat D'Antonio Drive during the winter storms. And they're going to put the brine down when necessary. They'll be doing the plowing. And if we can work things out so that the security gate for the fire department and police department can open without sounding a siren, because the DPW trucks don't have sirens. They will go down, they will go across, they will plow across the front of the school and go down the security entrance and plow that as well and treat that, and then go on to wherever they're going. Short of that, if we can't get them so they can open that gate, have to be taken care of by Sean's people. But they would come into the school, go across the front of the school, go around to the back of the parking lot, and then go down Dan Antonio Drive again. But they will take care of that. Because Sean's plow trucks are, one is not going to pass inspection and the other's on long lead and be purchased. It's already been approved, but it takes a while to build. DPW is going to help with the plowing on McCarthy School this winter. No, they're not going to charge anything. So that was all good news. And also, we discussed the paving here at North School. And we're going to try and coordinate. They own the first part of the street, which is in terrible shape, if anybody has driven it. They're going to have to pave that. When they pave that, they're going to come through and work with Sean on the funding and pave this North School. So we'll get advantage of their pricing because of, all the miles they do of the city streets. So that's a good thing. Okay. The other item is Pennachuck Middle School. So your discussion about moving things on changes to the following summer. We've been having discussions. You want to talk about it, or you want me to?
I didn't think it was the following summer. It's my recommendation not to make any changes.
The school year, which would be the summer.
Yeah, but we would evaluate, but I don't think there would be any changes the following summer.
So,
if you want.
All right. We had a discussion because we've had minor issues with traffic, particularly on Manchester Street, and because of the cars in the afternoon when parents pick up their students. Most of them should be on buses, but talked to Gabe about trying to put something out to the parents to try to encourage them to use buses and not cars, because you've added 250 students and 12 teachers to the Pennachuck. And I've had a discussion with the city traffic engineer. We're going to have to put signs up on Manchester Street, no stopping, standing, or parking on Manchester Street, because the traffic, when we did the change to Pennachuck, the Department of Transportation up in Concord, we can't go near Henry Burke. Last year, a couple times we got close, but not close enough for a problem, but if we add cars, they feel it could be an issue on impacting the Henry Burke. So there'll be no stopping, standing, or for cars on Manchester Street. They'll have to line up if they line up on Ferry. Hopefully they don't block any driveways, because then I'm going to be forwarding phone calls to somebody. But they're, and if all works out well, you won't have a problem. But we were thinking of switching the parent in the bus loop, because we get more cars in that side, in the bus loop, and get them off the street. But I think the decision was made to wait on that. The only concern I have on that is if there's any cost associated with changing that right now, we can charge it to the project. But the project will be done after the summer, so there will be no more project money available. So any changes is going to fall on somebody.
Well,
Change it.
can I ask a question? Because I live over in the BG neighborhood, and I get a lot of people who come and complain to me about driving in the morning and the BG kids getting dropped off. What do we do for over there that we could possibly do for Pennachuck as well?
BG, that would be another ward.
No, I know, but it's a problem with traffic enforcement and parents dropping students off at school and blocking driveways and causing traffic ruckus. What do we do over there to mitigate that problem?
I don't know. That's not falling under my reign anyway. And I don't think it falls under the school district either.
It doesn't, but if there's already a solution, why don't we?
Well, somebody will have to
And Bicentennial.
investigate it.
Okay, so it's happening at more than just Pennachuck.
So the city traffic engineer has that's sort of a major concern about it. And he's saying that if it becomes a problem, you don't fix it this summer and goes into next year, they're going to dictate that something has to be done. So I'm just concerned about cost, because the project will be finished.
So is the recommendation to put it in there so we can have it full and complete now?
It's technically up to the school department. We will do what we can to make the changes that are necessary. We've had several meetings on it. We had Turner come up with 4 different alternatives. We didn't like any of them. And 2 of their alternatives are very expensive. So we were going to have another meeting to figure out, if we did it, what we had to do and what the cost would be. Oh, I also want to mention the DPW is going to pave the first lot next to the ball fields. So that solves Chris's problem about where students can go in an emergency. They are going to pave that for us.
What are they paving over?
You know where the fence is, where you go out? We made that fence all the way along the athletic fields, and there were 2 parking areas put there for parents if they had overflow parking.
In relation to the tennis courts, is it in front of the tennis courts, on the other side of the tennis court?
Yeah,
On the other side.
You know where the fence is? You know where the bus loop is, and there's a fence?
Yeah.
On the way out to the basement.
Yeah. We used to go in the very back for field hockey because they didn't.
So we built the gravel parking area.
Yeah.
It's all ready for paving, so they're going to help us pave it, and it will be used for overflow parking, especially during athletic events, and it will have numbers so the kids can go over and stand there instead of being hit by buses. Yes. Okay.
So if I may, just a little background, and what my hesitancy of moving forward this summer is that the school design was for 800 students. So when we renovated the school, it was for 800 students. And that was taken into account. There are still, when I was over there and we counted extra parking spots for staff, there's plenty of spots for staff there. That staff is not an issue. And we're also talking about a remedy for 20 minutes a day. It's not a long time span that we're going on, and I don't see us paying 50,000 or hundreds of thousands of dollars to come up with a remedy for 20 minutes where it's really about human behavior of people showing up and how do we have traffic move, or there's parents that show up even at elementary schools 45 minutes an hour early, like
To be first in line. I
yeah,
was that. I
so,
was that
right.
obnoxious as well.
So I think there's other ways at a lower cost that can be addressed. Again, like the school was designed to handle up to 800 students. There's only going to be 700 students. We understand that there's, to Alderman Dowd's point, there's more parents picking up and dropping off kids than
That we're still
in
paying
years
for
past.
buses for.
That we're still paying for buses. But so I think that's my hesitancy, is that we're taking measures and spending money that we might not have to spend without fully assessing. We're doing stuff on hypotheticals on this might happen, and I don't think it's prudent to spend possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars on what ifs when there's other remedies prior that we could fix and use the money um, elsewhere if we think it's appropriate. And I think that's my hesitancy on. Let's see if the design is working first before we have to make any changes. And I think most of the changes are it's human behavior of where people are coming and the amount of cars. And I mean, in the design, we talked about how many cars can actually um, stack up before it becomes an issue. So I think we need to address it that way before we changing designs and adding on and spending money that we may not have to do.
So Sean and I had many discussions with Harriman, who designed the school, and it was designed to pre-COVID levels. And then when COVID hit, nobody wanted their kid on a bus. So they got used to picking their kids up at school. Now, if you can change the mindset so that they make the kids take the bus, you know, I've heard some issues about the buses, and I think the Board of Education ought to look into that. It's not my purview to look into it, nor do I want to. And if you can get more kids on the buses, you'll alleviate some of the cars, which would be okay. But if it doesn't work, then we have an issue.
And just
Searching for
yeah,
buses.
and just the other aspect of that is that we heard in our budget presentation from the athletic director, our numbers are actually creeping back up to pre-COVID numbers on the students who are participating in after-school sports. So there was a number of years that students weren't participating in after-school sports. If more students are participating in after-school activities, it's less people picking up at that time as well. So I think there's a multiple factors going in before I think we rush into making a decision on redesigning and spending money until we actually see how many students are going in there and going. And I mean, and I agree that we have kind of hypothetical, like we have money now that's in the bond. Just because we have it doesn't, I don't think we have the urgency to spend it if it's an issue that comes up later. And I mean, yes, it could be a school department issue, but I think we just need to be very cognizant on spending money that we may or may not have to do.
Well, there's a couple other things. There are issues when there are activities at the school at night and the parents come to pick up their kids and they get there early and there's a parking issue. But Gabe mentioned to me today that they had a sporting day the other day where they had so many parents, they were hanging them off flagpoles. He asked me if they could park up on the Pennachuck land. I said that they're at their own risk. Unless we ask Pennachuck and get permission to use it, the parents are at their own risk. And if there's an accident or something up there, all hell will pay. So the other thing is that I said starting in this next school year, having all those events at the same time at Pennachuck doesn't make sense when we got a brand new school with brand new athletic fields, brand new track, brand new rectangular field. You've got to schedule those things so you don't have that many parents parking at Pennachuck. Raymond.
Okay, well, I mean, part of the issue at Pennachuck right now in the afternoons is that Pennachuck hosts all of the Elm Street athletics as well. So right now it's doing double duty, and as we all know, Elm Street is massively larger than the other schools. So Elm Street sends 2 full buses.
Pennachuck sends their field hockey girls too.
Yep. So, wait, Fairgrounds. So Fairgrounds sends a bus for field hockey. Elm Street sends 2 full buses of track students, plus a bus for softball and a bus for baseball every day to Pennachuck. And so I think some of the afternoon traffic that we're seeing might be related to the multiple busloads of students that aren't going to go there next year. The other thing I would say is that before we talk about spending money on a new traffic pattern or something, we probably should see what that traffic pattern is. It sounds like there's like 4 different options, and we should probably take a look at them, maybe even put them on the website or something so that parents can weigh in about, hey, if I have to go down Ferry Road instead of this road, it would be nice to know before school starts so that they can think about it. But I don't know that that's necessarily a school design issue so much as it is a community notification issue. Does that make sense? Because I live in the Birch Hill neighborhood. I live on the side street that comes to Birch Hill, and cars go all the way from Birch Hill all the way to Dublin sometimes, and then we have people coming on my street, which is Dunbarton, to turn up there. And I know that Birch Hill wasn't designed with the idea that every single parent in that district was going to drive, yet I walked by them every day for all of the 8 years that both my kids were there. So,
Could have seen it before we did the change in the parking lot.
right?
Yeah, that was even worse.
Yeah, so I think there's a little bit more community input and education that have to happen. And then before we talk about spending money on something, I'd like to at least understand what the proposals are.
Oh, guaranteed. I mean, there were no final decisions made. We didn't know what was going to be done or even if there was anything that could be done.
Right. Yeah, so that's my question. Like, what are the options, right? We may look at all the options and say, really what we need to do is have, community meetings with parents and talk about.
So, and we also didn't want to spend money with a design group to come up with an alternative because that's expensive just for, but DPW, Lisa Photo, offered that they were going to try to come up with a possible proposal and price it out. It won't cost us anything, and then we'll know sort of what the price is. And I assume that will be fairly soon because the traffic engineer is the one that has issues.
Right, and I respect his expertise on this. I'd like to hear from him. But having said that, I think more information is needed before we move forward.
One last thing before we open up to other comments is that we found out today that, Dory, Brandon, huh?
I had a comment on that.
Hang on one second. We found out that the roof over the cafeteria at Pennachuck has leaks and problems, but we also found out today it's under warranty. And it's also covered with solar panels, so thank goodness it's under warranty and we can get it repaired. Still working that out, so we don't need any action at this point, but.
Just comment on the last topic. Would it be possible or an idea to look at Granite State Organizing Project? Because if I remember right, they did projections for downtown circulation studies and all that kind of stuff, and they've been very interested in school transportation in the last 2 years. I think they might have project money even.
It's sort of, if we're going to do it this summer, we have to work on it. And B, we want somebody to do it that's not going to charge us, so.
I don't think they would, but I won't speak for them. I'm just saying
It'll take
maybe.
a while to set up, so. It may not be a problem if we can get more people on buses, that should be on buses. Yes.
I guess my thing was, what would be the price difference if we waited a year? What would happen to the bond money that we don't spend this year on this project? What would happen to it?
It's going to, the $10 million bond for the middle school project hasn't been sold.
Okay.
So anything that right now, Harvey has told us that they're going to release $2 million because we had that many savings, and there may be more. What'll happen is the bond will not be sold for the full 10 million. It'll be sold for just what we need.
Absolutely.
And it could be as much as half. So, and you can't just use middle school money. Well, we could use it if the project's still in vogue, with the authority of this committee, if we had changes we wanted to make in any regard at Pennachuck within reason. But after the project's closed, that money's gone. They're not going to sell the bond for 10 million when we only need something less. Yes.
What are the parameters around when the project is done? Who decides that? Is there a time frame? Is there like a checklist that gets done? Is there a date already established for it? Who decides
This
it?
middle school project?
Yeah.
No, we will get a certificate of completion from Harvey Construction when the job is done. Once that's signed, project's done, just like Franklin Street. Now, the difference on Franklin Street is that bond was sold. So that money exists relatively in city coffers. So we can transfer that amount of money via legislation through the Board of Aldermen to the vestibule project. If we haven't sold the bond yet, the city's not going to sell the bond. There's no money there.
But like this deadline for when we can spend the money, so there's no like real date of when we need to come up with this plan for the drive-through, because there's no actual date that we're bumping up against. The only date that exists is one that we give it.
Kathy, you were here for a reason.
I tried. So when we finish all of the construction, it'll take us a couple months, but we'll reconcile the finances, just like we did at Franklin Street. So this fall, really, once the dehumidification project is complete and McCarthy is complete, after everybody's moved in and we're sure everything's all good, then we would do credit PCOs, will come through this committee and reconcile the final costs. What happens after that would be the end, I would assume, and you guys would then determine whether to move the money or whatever.
When we get the
Or not
certificate of completion, it comes back to this committee, I will sign it off, and it's done.
Could you
Okay,
sign
so
it
we're in charge of
slowly?
that deadline.
I sign it slowly.
Like
So if we're in charge,
next
so
year?
if we're in charge of that deadline, then we can hold off on figuring out what the traffic pattern needs to be until we see how many buses go away for the shared sports students, and if we can get parents on board with using more of the school already paid for transportation. So then we can look at it and see. I mean, what's the point of paying for things twice if we're,
Sooner the better, and.
we could charge a toll when the
hoping
parents
that
come
city
up.
traffic engineer gives us a number fairly quickly.
So, but that's also the question. How
Alderman
would we
Sullivan?
know when all that's done? Like, how would
So
we
that's
know?
what she just said, is they come through and they do it, and then we sign off that the project's done.
No, I mean the parents. How will we know when the traffic pattern changes? Everything that you just said, how will we know?
I
when
guess
that's done?
October 1st
So,
of next year, when all the kids go to McCarthy and we're no longer using the Pennachuck fields for after-school sports for the joint teams for Pennachuck and Elm Street. I mean,
Oh.
Fairgrounds and Elm Street.
okay, so decision already made. We're waiting until next October.
Well, that's what I'm asking, if we can. And it sounds like we can, because
But
we're
we
in charge of the
can't because
deadline.
is when they close it out this.
Nope,
summer.
she said they
Well-
close it out, and then it gets sent over to Alderman Dowd, and he signs off on the certificate of
Once,
completion.
once all the efforts,
Can't sign it now.
give me that pen. Once all the Harvey's work is done, they want to finish up and get paid and close the books. And then it comes back, and once we close the books, only sell the bond for the amount of money we need, and the project will be closed, and there'll be no more bond money, at least for the middle school project. Anything beyond that would have to be separately funded somehow. Alderman Sullivan, did you have a?
I had a comment as kind of an innocent bystander as I was watching the back and forth about the traffic changes at Pennachuck. It sounded to me that we had one group talking and not the other group talking, or not included on those meetings. That's my question, is it seemed like there were a lot of discussions being had without people that should have been at the table. And I'm just wondering, before we do anything, maybe we should just ask more people to come to the meeting so we have.
The meetings we held on traffic had the city engineer, the city traffic engineer, the planning department, Dr. Andrade, Sean Smith, and his people.
Okay, so everybody was there.
With full transparency, I was at 2 meetings.
Yeah, we only had.
And Mr. Smith was at a couple meetings, but no one from the Board of Education was at those meetings.
Okay. That's just an observation.
Because if we had come up with a solution, it would have to come back to this committee to be discussed. Yes.
They wasn't at the meeting, neither was us. We wasn't at the meeting either. So the only one was
No,
at
we
the
can't.
meeting.
These,
Meetings were,
it's construction meetings, and we had H.L. Turner. Was it H.L. Turner or the other Turner?
Vanass.
Vanessa did the
Vanessa.
traffic. So they were presenting to us. It was basically the impact of the meeting was the city engineer and the city traffic engineer wanting to see if we had a problem we had to solve. And Vanessa came up with 4 alternatives. We didn't like any of the 4. It was a preliminary meeting, and it was to just go over options address them with the school department. And Gabe was in there as well. Yeah, Alderman Lopez.
It sounds like committee members here are interested in having a presentation here, at least by the traffic engineers and those people.
If we come up with a solution that can be brought here, yes. If it's just speculation, we can't just have a committee meeting with 40 people there.
Could there be like a briefing on these are the actual main issues? This is the traffic flow we observe?
As soon as we realize there's an issue, it'll come back to this committee.
Do you mind posting those meetings that you have, and then if people have questions or comments and maybe have some additional information, they can join if they want to?
Not official meetings, because they're not a majority of.
Nope, and we can team with Board of Ed, and we can probably have one of our administrative assistants kind of keep track of how many members of our board want to go, so that we don't make a quorum, but at least we're represented when you're having these conversations about our schools.
As far as I'm concerned, if they want to go with the traffic the way it is, it won't be our problem once the project's done. If the Board of Ed wants to take it over and deal with the city, won't be.
No, we would just
won't
like to
come here Unless
participate.
we have a solution.
What would be the problem if the Board of Ed came to these meetings? It sounds like there's some hesitation with just having more people at the table. I'm just wondering what it is.
Because typically, the more people you have in a meeting like that, the less gets done.
That is true. But then we're not in these meetings questioning why we're doing things.
And no action would come out of that meeting unless it came to this joint special and was approved. Done.
If I could, I get to play Alderman Sullivan's role for a second, watching everything. So the end of the project won't be till after all the invoices are received. That's going to go well into the fall, October, November, depends on how. Probably Harvey will be the last one sending in invoices, but that's going to be well into the fall. By that point, you're going to have several months of observing traffic at Pennachuck. We'll have a chance to see the impact of the additional students, fewer athletic teams, all of that. So well before the project is done, we'll have a chance to take a step back and say, oh, we better do something here because there's too much traffic. So we'll have ample opportunity in the fall. I don't anticipate us having any more Pennachuck traffic meetings until that date. There's no more meetings scheduled. Once we heard that we didn't want to do anything this summer, then we're done with meetings until then.
Dr. Andrade?
Just to add, and I think that's where some of the questions were coming from here, is that when is the actual end of the project? Almost like the dehumidification, we knew it was in the scope of the work, but it didn't happen at the beginning. It happened closer to the end of the project of the timing. So it could be, to Mr. Smith's point, that we have 3 months' worth of data at the beginning of the year to say the project isn't closed, and I think this is what Ms. Raymond was trying to ask. If we see in October, and the project isn't closed yet, that there is a need to undertake this project, is it still in the time frame to actually go forward? And I think that would be a question for the committee,
So,
if I heard you correctly as well.
so as I understand right now, nothing's going to be done until we see what its impact is on the new school year. And if there's an impact, then it's a question of when and what needs to get done, and we can have somebody come here and give a presentation. We have also want to go open up questions on the budgeting that Alderman Sullivan had asked for. So I think we ought to get into that. And the only other concern I have for Pennachuck is that's my ward, and I had people complaining about the traffic light and Ferry Road, and so I have 5,000 people to worry about in that ward, not just the school. So I am wearing two different hats, and we'll see how it goes. If it works, fine. It's not a problem. All right. So now we're going to have a discussion on any questions that people might have on the budgets for the ongoing projects.
So I have a question. I was looking at, I'm sorry, you didn't give me the floor yet. You didn't acknowledge me yet. I didn't want to just start talking.
Ms. Bishop.
So I was noticing between the two vestibule projects, there are different numbers that were presented from from March's proposed budget and over to April's budget. And I was just wondering what the differences were in the line items and why there was like the owner and architect contingency went from 453,000 to 56,000. Why was, just there are a couple of differences, and I don't feel like we talked about them in the
Two
meeting.
things that impacted that. One was the prices weren't solid until we approved the guaranteed maximum price, which was the last meeting. And the owner's architect's contingency is the money that's left over. It can be reallocated to other things. That's why it's in contingency. Sean can address that. So
Is that why the shift changed from 1.7 last meeting to 1.3? Is that $400,000 that we're no longer putting into the budget? Because last meeting you said it was going to be 1.7.
right now, the
Dr.
cost of the vestibule project is the guaranteed maximum price that we approved at the last meeting, 1.3 something.
So where's
And
that
it won't
400?
change unless we approve PCOs
Right, but where did that $400,000 go?
into contingency.
But it's no longer here in the plan.
Contingencies in there.
No, it says $56,000 now. In architect contingency.
Well, the spreadsheet that's in your package
Last month.
shows with the construction manager, the 1.3 million. That's their GMP they provided last month and we approved. That enabled me to take whatever additional funds were sitting there originally and put that in contingency. So the contingency line, hopefully we're all looking at the same spreadsheet, is $453,000.
Oh, so it started off as $50,000 and changed to $453,000.
Before we adjusted GMP and everything, yes.
That's a lot of money.
It doesn't mean it gets spent. Contingency just expires if we don't spend it. It's there if we need it. Like when we do PCOs and we say we don't need to go back and get any additional bond money, it's because we have money in contingency. Cover it. So if that money is in contingency is going to get spent, it would have to come back here as a PCO.
If I could, it could also be used for new Searles when and if we receive those numbers and we vote to proceed.
So that number's going to even be bigger when we transfer the money in. And it will sit there, and if we do get a reasonable price on new Searles, and we do new Searles when it gets approved by this committee, then that money will go towards new Searles. Okay,
I have a question on that.
Alderman Sullivan?
I just want to make sure I heard Mr. Smith correctly. If we don't use all of the contingency on Dr. Crisp, we can move it to New Searles.
Yes, because the bond for the original 2 million was for Dr. Crisp, New Searles, and Mount Pleasant.
Yep.
We stopped all work on Mount Pleasant because at that point in time, there was a big question as to whether the school was going to stay open or not.
Yep.
And until that's finally decided, we have a design. The design at all three schools was done. Unfortunately, the design at New Searles was $2.7 million, which was the wrong approach. They were adding on to the front of the building. We have another approach that they've given to us now that looks more reasonable. They haven't given us enough detail to price it through Harvey. So that'll be upcoming. When we finally have a number that we can bring back to this committee for New Searles, their security vestibule, then it's probably going to exceed the amount of $2 million for the two projects. But we'll be moving in the money from Franklin Street, so the money that's left will have to be made up through the Board of Aldermen somehow. Bonding or shifting money from something else.
Lemonade stand.
Hmm?
Lemonade stand.
Lemonade stand. Yes. You all set, Alderman Sullivan?
I had a question on McCarthy, but I'll yield my time.
So my question is about this. Because you're talking about the project as a 3-school project rather than we're just doing Dr. Crisp, how does the RFP process work for that? Is Harvey the contractor for all 3? Or do we have to do another RFP if we decide we're looking to actually build the vestibule or something along those lines?
Sean?
We issued an RFP about a year ago. Harvey was actually the only vendor to bid on it, but it was for all 3 schools.
So that means that not only does nobody else want it, but we did, because of the bonding or the project start, we did already award this. So if it gets done, it will probably get done through them.
As a construction manager, yes, we didn't, we put it out for architects, and we only had one bid for architects as well. Harriman didn't bid it, so we had Turner bid it, and they came up with the designs for all 3 schools. So they're adjusting the one for New Searles because it was far too expensive.
One last follow-up. Is there any point where they can say, like, this is more than we thought it would be, or back out of it, or Harvey and Turner? Because, I mean, if we had a plan for 3 and then we're hung up on the middle one and another school may or may not be closed, it's not exactly the same proposal.
I'm going to ask Kathy, do you want to address that?
Either one.
We wouldn't turn it down.
Just
If it's more
checking.
money, it'd be great. A bigger school. No, we're under agreement with you guys, and we'll see it all the way through. Whatever happens, and whether it be nothing or whether it be,
Correct.
At least one.
Just for the record, we've had phenomenal success with Harvey, especially saving us money on a lot of areas in all these schools. And they're also low bidders. Lowest qualified bidders, as Brendan would say. Any other questions, Alderman Sullivan?
On the Brian McCarthy Middle School, so this is my big question. Sounds like we're pretty close to done. 5%?
It's hard to put an exact number on it. We're doing a lot of outside work right now. The inside work is not complete. It's getting close, very close. But I'll give you an McCarthy.
Well, now you're bringing it up, so now you have to.
Raise the roof.
So we are fairly close, and as I said, Harvey's already guaranteed that there's basically saying that their number is 2 million less at this time, and could be very much more when we get closer to finished. We just had Revision Energy tell us they're gonna put the solar on sooner rather than later. And somehow they did some kind of analysis of the roof and found 2 places where the roof would not support solar panels. That caused Sean and I a huge concern, because if it can't handle solar panels, which are fairly light, what about snow loads? So we think they're wrong, and we have a meeting Monday morning with Harriman when Jamie gets back and say, you know what we're gonna say. Because it would be a design issue, but I think that the Revision Energy is wrong, and Harriman will guarantee that, but those are the kind of things that come up that, with contingency money, that if we had to add steel to the roof somehow, it ain't cheap. But it may also fall on the people that designed it rather than this, but we can't release the money until we have all of these things ironed out. When the school is ready and Harvey and Harriman say, yep, ready to turn over to the school department.
So my question goes to, and if I'm reading the financial statement correctly, we've spent, including tonight's invoices, which I'm assuming are listed in the invoices for approval, which don't match, by the way, it's about $800 off. But whatever, we've spent 75, I'm rounding up, we've spent $75 million so far of the 92, with about 17 million left to go. My question is, at what point do you feel comfortable saying, here's where I think the final cost is gonna be? We are close enough to the end where I'm gonna say, and I'm just picking numbers, I think it's gonna be $82 million.
Well, we'll have an idea, but until all the invoices are in and all paid, we can't guarantee anything. But we have said that there will be more money coming back.
I understand.
We can't put a dollar number on it right now.
Okay, but we must have at some point pending invoices that are in pencil and haven't carried through yet. So if we factor that in, what I'm asking for is, at what point do you think that we could, within, I'll say 10%, a forecasted completion number on the school? A week before it opens?
I would speak for Harvey's part, which is obviously a large chunk of the 92 million, but from our part, we're projecting about 2 million as a savings, and we would look to finalize that in September. I would say September. We just need to get to an even closer number.
Could I just ask you a follow-up, and maybe to you, Alderman Dowd? When you say 2 million, there's a contingency in there of about 2 million. Is that the 2 million you're talking about?
No, that's 2 million out of the number you see there for Harvey.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Inside of our construction manager line item,
Okay.
there's 2 million.
Okay.
In addition to the rest of the sheet.
All right.
Sean and I have indicated that there will be money left in contingency. Can't do a dollar number right now, but there will be money left. So that's why we said that we're going to be in much better shape, and that's why they're not selling the bond until we get closer to the end. But until all the contractors are out of the building, and I'm sure Severino and the people putting in the granite curbing and the land, and Moran's hasn't done a lot of the landscaping yet, till that's all done and invoices turned in. We don't know.
That's why I
What
say
is the projected end date?
Well, it opens this year.
This year.
So that's
Okay.
my question is, if there's 2 million in contingency, 2 million that we can give back, that means that we have 13 million that's still owed. What's left to do that's $13 million on that building?
Well, we haven't paid Moran's for landscaping. And Moran's is doing a lot of work, $600,000 worth of work at the school.
Okay, so that's 12 million.
And I think, you've got a lot of invoices that haven't even been turned in yet I'm sure Severino's got more invoices. And They probably haven't invoiced us for the gate yet, right?
In Longchamps, there's a series of various
Yeah.
contracts as we finalize and get to the completion date.
Well, what's not done? So
A-wing.
invoices
So-
is obviously stuff that's done, we just haven't paid for, but what's still left to do?
There is, so all of the electrical programming, lighting controls, all of the testing and everything that we've been doing now. So there's also commissioning with the HVAC, all of the exterior, like right now, we're working on in the back, the dumpster station, the compactor station, the extensive landscaping scope. There's still a little bit of guardrail, some fencing, and then at the interior for the most part, so there's sound paneling in some of the music rooms, band rooms, some, equipment, items like that. Millwork is still being finished up, so there's a lot still being worked on.
So
Kathy?
this may be a stupid question, and I love asking them because it's more representative of who I am. Is there a list of things? So we start off these projects, and this is really just, is there like a file here that says these are all of the things that need to happen for any project? And then is there a way that we can see as like regular, normal, I only watch this old house type of people, that it's like check and then paid? So like we can see what's been done, what hasn't been paid, what needs to do, what needs to be paid in a really simple, like how I would do my at-home budget. Like I have $400 slated for groceries. It's the middle of the month. I still have 200 left. I know there are 2 weeks. Does that exist somewhere for our edification?
Yeah, if I may,
Yes,
the
go ahead,
bill that
Kathy.
we submit every month does have it broken out by division of work in general categories with all the backup behind it, which is probably what Sean's pulling out.
Right, no, I know we get it month to month, but is there a master spreadsheet?
So that is the master spreadsheet, the AIA billing that happens every single month. So
If I could. So in your package, you see their invoice for, this one's Birch Hill. So there's a cover sheet, it's called the AIA document. That tells us how much they're invoicing us for that month. If you go back a couple of pages, you have a spreadsheet. And it doesn't list the excruciating detail, but it says, okay, for plumbing, this is how much we originally planned, this is how much we've expended to date, this is how much we have left. So that's about as much detail as I think we'll find. Then attached to this are all the invoices there for that month. But
Can you walk me through where to find that, Dr. Andrade?
So
Sorry, just 'cause you're
pull-
sitting next to
I
me.
just pulled up one of our weekly or bi-weekly meetings that we have, whether it's McCarthy or Birch Hill. It's just a 3-week look ahead, which I think is just kind of informative. It's not part of the packet, but just again, where these are the current projects going on. This is the anticipated, and then I think if you couple that with Sean's form, I think it just gives a clear picture of, if we're looking at earthwork site packages over the next 3 weeks, and then what's the spend down. I think it just paints a picture of like, as you're going through the PowerPoint and you're going over the PCOs, and these are the works
Correct.
going on. This is just another visual of saying we're in good shape.
correct.
if I could also, though, if you asked what else has to be spent. So if you look at like the McCarthy spreadsheet, we have FF&E, which is furniture, fixtures, and equipment. We haven't even taken delivery to any of the furniture yet.
Yeah, no, I
That's a
knew
couple
that.
$1 million right there. Those are gonna be invoices coming in. Same with the IT infrastructure. We've awarded several contracts. Those invoices haven't come in. So there's a lot of things that are pending that we haven't taken receipt on.
I think that's what we're trying to get to, is we understand that there are goods and services that we've budgeted for and that we've contracted for, but we haven't paid. And we're just trying to, I think all we're trying to do is just, we're just eager to find out kind of what that number is gonna be sooner as opposed to later.
Well, I think, if I could just continue. So we've heard from Harvey already, there's at least $2 million, perhaps more. We have $2 million in contingency that hopefully we're not going to touch. But when we set up the entire project to start with, we said this is middle school project money. If we have to address the steel situation, that'll come out of that contingency. If we have to spend more at Pennachuck, and I don't think we will, then we'd come out of that contingency. At present, there's no plan to spend that contingency, so that's another $2 million. So now we're up to,
Good.
Right, and that's why I'm asking, I mean, if we're 95% done, I mean, the probability of something coming up shrinks. Because we're I mean, the end, I mean, we see the end zone. So that's kind of why I'm pushing to find out how close we are to done.
Nobody builds a wall in the end line. Is right now, all the budgets have been approved by this committee. If the money's come in, if anything had to be spent beyond what's already been authorized, it'd have to have a PCO. We have no PCOs for McCarthy at the current time. So whatever's listed there in the budget, if the invoices come in less than that, that's all money that's going to be come off the $10 million bond. So is there going to be monies left over? Yes, but you know, we're still doing things. We just put the pad in for the compactor that's coming from Elm Street. The compactor is being rebuilt. I don't think it's left yet. It has to go. They're using it, so it has to go be rebuilt. They've given us a price, but it could come in more expensive if they find something wrong with the compactor. I mean, it's all little things. But so it's not going to, there's going to be significant money left, but I can't give you exact dollar amount until we get the final invoices. We could guess, but that doesn't help. A lot of things left to do. There's a master schedule, but that doesn't give you prices. That just tells you all the things that haven't been finished yet.
I was
Yes.
just asking if there's a way that we can make a projection now that we're.
We could take a guess, but if it's wrong,
Well, a guess, a projection, however you want to call it. That's what I'm. At this point, based on year by year.
In,
Maybe there's more.
I wanted to add one thing. So when you do look at sort of the line that we have to remain, so one of the biggest pieces of that is, so we hold retainage over our subcontractors to ensure that the work is completed and that they turn over all of the documents to be transmitted to Mr. Smith and his team. So a lot of the remaining bill to balance for us is really, it's that retainage piece. It's what's withheld and what needs to be remitted to the subcontractors to close out and complete the job.
which is 10% of your contract.
10% of each and every contract. So all the recommendations that I presented tonight, I will hold 10% of every single one of those contracts, and it won't be released till the end.
Might be at 5%, but still, that's a point. It's several $1 million worth of retainage that is part of that remaining balance number, rather than saying it's work that's not complete. It's actually complete, but the money's just being held. So
part of
it's sort
that,
two different lists.
Reagan trust but verify, but trust but verify. You know, so until the job's complete and Harvey and Herman baptize it, they don't release the retainage. So that hasn't come through here yet. But if you want my best guess, but I don't want to be held to it because we don't know what could happen, I would say that we could be looking at $4 or $5 million in the end. But so we have Monday morning, we find out what's going on with Revision Energy. Crucify somebody. But anyway, okay. Anyone else have anything they want to bring up? Except you?
I've been recognized, I see.
Yes, go ahead, Alderman Lopez.
Just since you're also chair of the budget committee for the aldermen, do you know when the date of the school board's budget presentation is going to be?
Yes, and
May 21st, right?
May 21st,
Okay.
and it's the only thing on the agenda that night is the school department.
Okay, I just want to make sure Superintendent Andre and President Bishop felt like they were fully being invited to meetings.
I was here for their budget, well, your budget thing went pretty fast last night since there was no people here.
I have one
I missed it, but
final question. When we started the middle school project a few years back, we had a start date and we had a completion date. And we are in that start date. We started on time. We probably would complete on time. And that's what I'm looking for. We are not at that date yet. Is that correct?
Started late because of permitting issues, actually, and we are still able to be ready for opening the school year.
And that's the most important part right there. The other little stuff that you're talking about, the grass, the trees and all that's irrelevant. We had a start date, we got a completion date. We should be completed by that date and then it's a success.
as far as when we turn it over to the school board, that's when it's, and it's ahead of schedule. The building will be done long before the start of the school year. So they have to move in, they have to get their classrooms ready, they have to get their offices ready, a lot. So between the actual construction being done and school opening is.
And then we get Elm Street.
Yeah.
Trade.
You want it?
You can have it.
Talk about a
Yeah,
parking
it's
and
in the ward.
drop-off nightmare, Elm Street.
Yeah.
We'll leave the lights on for you.
We're arguing about that, but then look at Elm
So
Street.
I think everyone knows that a contract was put out, a request for proposals to basically knock down Elm Street. But the Board of Aldermen made a motion to exclude the Keefe Auditorium at this time. So,
Are they gonna get new chairs at least in there?
so
That's a long way off.
more to come on that. Anything else? John, you're all set? We have a motion.
Move to adjourn.
All, the motion is to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Hey.
Motion carries.
Do I really have to document that you say nay? I do.
We're adjourned at 8:52.